Welcome back, everyone, to the Mangled Cable stream. You want me to do the intro?
I'm back! There we go!
Alright, here we go.
It's Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. It's that time of the week again. The love child of Ascension eSports, LoveDi and Doctor, back on the desk. And here we are, guys. We are facing off between Torn, Butthole, and Spirit 8, and they're already banding some champs away.
Right, and for a quick reminder for everyone, we are going to be having playoffs approaching soon, so every series is going to count. Number 4, Torn Butthole, going to have to pause every time I say that, versus number 6, Spirit 8. Both teams trying to compete to make sure they have their playoff spots locked in, and we can see, as I was talking about that, we've already gone through the entire first ban phase.
Yeah, this ban phase is pretty common. I mean, we have the Diana who received some changes, Warwick, Kassadin, Caitlyn, Rakan, and Zac, all pretty meta bans. Stuff that you don't want to play against, stuff that's pretty unbalanced. But speaking of unbalanced, we get a Cho'Gath, who is, if you've been watching LCS lately, just absurd.
Yeah, that's definitely something you're going to have to be watching out for in the coming weeks with the changes to tanks. Tanks all over the place have been buffed, and interesting interaction for those who are not aware, Cho'Gath's ultimate is not reduced whatsoever by the Gargoyle Stoneplate, which is why he's been considered such a high priority pick. Got a ton of upfront burst damage. He's tanky as hell, basically only rivaled by the Nunu in that HP growth statistic, and he also has the changed Vorpal spikes. Really just an overall good frontline champion right now, and the fact that he increases in size is definitely fun too. It really literal meat shield for your backline.
One thing that we've been noticing a lot though with the Cho'Gath is you kind of need some engage combo with him, because he can't be your solo engage tool, because it's just not going to work. The rupture is not quick enough to get that catch.
And we can see already the first 4 picks of the game really bringing that tank meta to the forefront. We can already see 2 what are considered kind of bruiser type tank counters in the Trundle and the Darius. I can assume those are both coming to the top lane as well. Trundle, of course, going to look to shred a little bit of those resistances off of the Cho'Gath once he gets huge. Nautilus, of course, has been a staple in the last half of a year. Tons of engage, multiple forms of CC, maybe going to the jungle, maybe going to the bot lane. We'll have to see. And of course, Darius has been considered kind of a counter pick to those melee frontliners that really don't want to tank 5 stacks to the face from this bleed, and the mid laners have been locked in as well. Some staples in the mid lane, Orianna and Syndra, both strong playmaking potential, some decent 1v1, decent phase, overall very balanced mages, balanced being used lately. Balanced mages in the mid lane.
Yeah, and I like to point out a pretty clean draft phase already from TBW. You know, they first picked that Cho'Gath. It is a flex pick, but if you're confident that that's going to be going topside, then the Trundle pick is perfect, because you get, you know, the pillar to keep him in the lane, doesn't have, you know, a dash or a jump or anything to get away, and you can just pound Cho'Gath in the face. But if they flex it to the jungle, boom, you all of a sudden have a Darius in your lane, and like you were mentioning, that's not a fun matchup. I mean, Trundle's going to have some difficulties heading into this. He's not going to have the best laning phase, but he's going to have that late game, hopefully, unless Darius just absolutely thrashes him.
We can see a few more bans coming down now. They are targeting the bot lane once more. Tristana, Lucian, Xayah, and Caitlyn all been banned away in the AD carry role. They're really taking away a lot of priority picks in that bot lane. They already have the front line they want. They just don't want to have to deal with the more deadly ADCs. The only real top tier AD carry that's going to be coming out still is Kalista. Kalista still being available. She can definitely kite the Darius and the Cho'Gath if given the tools necessary.
The Lulu
What?
pick
That's
leads me to
Lulu
believe
getting picked up instead, though.
we're-
Surprising considering the fact that mage supports in general have kind of fallen out of favor recently. I
they've
mean, you still
fallen
have
out
things like
so
the Braum,
far.
the Tom Kench.
Yeah, I mean, so they've fallen out so far, but there's been a couple people that think they're going to be coming back because, you know, we had the tanky supports, we had the Braum, we had the Tom Kench, but now that the tank roles are being filled by the top side of the map again, then we can come back to these support picks. So with the Jhin being locked in, I actually think we're going to see something like a Kog'Maw coming out of Spirit 8. The Lulu does a fantastic job keeping him alive, keeping him, you know, shielded up and doing tons of damage, whereas Jhin Soraka is a very passive lane. Jin's something that's been being picked up a lot professionally now with the changes to lethality, which even though lethality is, you know, not exactly fantastic.
That's probably a placeholder.
Yeah. Lethality is not fantastic heading into tank line. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. And like I was saying, the placeholder, the Aatrox, where we saw that last pick, it was a Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw does fantastic shredding tanks. He's fantastic in this tank meta as long as you can keep him alive. And so that's what that Lulu pick does, is it gives you the confidence to be able to keep him alive, keep him in the backline, just putting out damage. And heading into a Jhin lane, that's a free lane for Kog'Maw almost. He's going to be able to scale and get going, and I'm kind of worried for Torn right now.
Right, blocking in that Jhin after they already know there's an established front line with the Nautilus, really just... I'm not quite sure why they decided to opt for the Jhin. Yes, the ADC pool did definitely get pinched, but as you mentioned, the Kog'Maw was still available, the Kalista was still available as well, and really the other two utility ADCs, Varus and Ashe, are still better tank killers than Jhin. He is possibly the worst tank killing ADC because whether you go crit or lethality, you really aren't able to bust through the tanks with that limited ammunition you have with your 4-shot mechanic. We do see now they're picking their roles. It looks like that Trundle is going to be going to the jungle instead, and Nautilus is going into the top lane. They do want to have the Trundle able to farm safely. Obviously, if he goes top lane, that's a little bit more volatile lane. They decided to prioritize some safer Trundle farm and told the Nautilus, well, you know, you got a lot of CC. We don't really need you to get as much gold as the Trundle. So they're just going to be leaving him to the top lane to try and survive. Remember, Nautilus was nerfed quite a few patches ago, then Doran's Ring was nerfed, and those nerfs originally to Nautilus were never reverted, which means that he is not nearly as strong as he was in the past and may have a little bit of a struggle trying to survive this early laning phase against the Darius.
Yeah, I mean, not having, you know, the double Dorans, the crazy Riptide wave clear, it's going to be rough going for a little bit, but eventually he's going to get to a point where he kind of outscales and you can throw down the depth charge possibly onto the Jhin, and all of a sudden, you know, that can cancel out a curtain call or something like that and keep him out of the fight. And then, you know, those 4 shots won't even really matter. And with lethality being so good early game against people that don't get stacking armor, so like we're not going to have a Trundle run down to, you know, level 3 with a Brambleback. So Jhin will actually be able to get, you know, a first item Duskblade or a first item Ghostblade. But then if Dythex actually knows how to play this matchup, at that point he's going to swap over, pick up an Infinity Edge and a Rapid Fire Cannon. And that way, you know, he gets that early game boom while still being relevant in the late game. Whereas if, you know, Dythex doesn't know the build path, he's going to go Duskblade, Ghostblade into probably an Infinity Edge at that point, and he's not going to do anything. So it'll be interesting to see how Dythex plays out the lane, let alone the build path. But heading into Kog'Maw Lulu, that's such a hard thing to deal with because the Lulu's going to be poking onto Soraka. Soraka's not going to be able to get, you know, all those heals off because if they're smart, they'll dodge out on the Q, not give Soraka that free health regen, and Kog'Maw, you know, pre-6 has the living, not the living artillery, what's the W? Bio Arcane Barrage?
I believe, yeah. Living Artillery is the R. Bio Arcane Barrage is the extended range, the powered auto attacks. I think what they want to go for, though, in this bottom lane, they do know they're going to be losing out on trades, and they absolutely will not win the all-in. But what they do have is the sustain overall. So they might be going for 4th shot trades. They know they won't win them, but they will slowly whittle down the Kog'Maw and hope to take him down little by little and hopefully win the sustain war before the first back. That's how I could see them maybe take advantage of this laning phase. Of course, Lulu Kog'Maw is a little bit more slippery than they were in the past. The Whimsy does allow the Kog'Maw to juke away, and if Cho'Gath does come down into the bottom lane, I can't see ganks being very successful as well. Important to note that since they're on the blue side, they're not going to have that easy blast cone access to get into the bottom lane and try and gank from behind. They're going to have to invade first of all just to get the Cho'Gath in position to get really sneaky ganks. Otherwise, he'll have some pretty standard gank paths in that bottom lane. And it'll be, honestly, I expect it to be an uphill battle for TBW in the bot lane specifically. Of course, mid lane, we've seen this multiple times before. This matchup's usually pretty even. The barrier's been taken by the Orianna, not necessarily the most common summoner spell in the world, but it is going to keep her relatively safe. In the 1v1, I do expect to see them kind of farm up. Maybe some jungle pressure might change that, but otherwise, a very stable mid lane matchup. And of course, in the top lane, we do expect to see this Darius win pretty heavily. We haven't seen him in the meta in a while, but he definitely bashes on those tanks, and if he gets those 5 stacks, that is absolutely a one trade for him.
Yeah, and you mentioned the gank paths from the Cho'Gath down to the bottom lane. One thing that does kind of go in their favor is the Soraka long range star call and her I struggle with Soraka abilities because she's never played, thank God, so I struggle with the ability names. But between her Q and her silence, they're actually fairly long range. So if you can combo, say, a Q into a Deadly Flourish, into a silence, into a Rupture from the Cho'Gath, that is like 6 seconds of disabled, and it's not going to be easy for the Kog'Maw to get out. Or if it lands on the Lulu, even better. Has to use the wild growth on herself, has to use the shielding on herself, and then Kog'Maw can then be a repeat gank for free. So I think that's what they're kind of going to be looking for if Cho'Gath ever comes down to the bottom side. But that could also be a fairly big if. I mean, he has that Nautilus in the top side, he has that Syndra in the mid lane, both way more immobile targets than the Whimsied bot lane. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go more towards the bottom, or towards the top side of the map versus the bottom side.
And as you mentioned earlier, there is a sort of unspoken global pressure that comes from the Soraka past level 6 as well. Definitely able to play more aggressive when you know that that ultimate is available, that basically emergency pocket of health that you can call on. And I do fully expect to see some teamwork coming from that. Maybe Darius going for a more aggressive play, maybe even setting up a dive in the top lane, knowing that they have the Soraka ultimate as a little bit of extra healing near the end. Honestly, I do expect to see, out of all the lanes, the top lane punished the hardest, because the Darius versus tank matchup has almost always gone in his favor. He does have the Grasp of the Undying versus the Courage of Colossus as well, which means he's going to be dealing a little bit more damage in that lane also. Nautilus is most likely just going to be trying to farm his hardest early on. We do see Stoneborn packed for both junglers as well. Both Cho'Gath and Trundle, they love the bonus HP that you manage to get from that mastery. And of course, the actual passive itself does benefit both teams. Jhin is not going to get nearly as much benefit out of it as the Kog'Maw might, but nonetheless, you are definitely going to be able to get some value out of these Stoneborn packs. We can see, of course, Jhin has been taking, more and more Jhins recently have been taking the Warlord's Bloodlust. The 4th shot especially, very nicely coupled with the rapid fire changes as well. You constantly get to have that passive up, keep that sustain in the lane. And of course, Fervor of Battle for the Kog'Maw, he wants to be going on hit. Something we should point out before we get into the game though, going to be a few different build paths we can see on the Kog'Maw now. I've seen some Kog'Maws go for the Blade of the Ruin King rush as before. They might go for Hurricane. We've seen some more on-hit heavy builds, things like Wit's End, the Rage Blade. Really, there's just a ton of options for the current iteration of Kog'Maw, and really going to have to see what TSM Loose Cannon decides to go for this match.
I think the general consensus that I've been seeing in solo queue is the Blade of the Ruin King into Hurricane. Kog'Maw,
Which is the safest, most common
yeah,
build,
it's
of
the
course.
safest. You know, Kog'Maw, not a like he definitely could get away with the Energizer Bunny build, but it's not something that's been going common. It's a very expensive build. You don't necessarily need it with the Kog'Maw because of the Bio Arcane Barrage. But one thing, you know, we saw in the loading screen there that Mimikyu actually took Thunderlords versus Wind Speakers. And that, I think, is pretty impactful because, you know, Mimikyu, he has that wild growth, has that shielding, both of which, you know, if you get an Ardent Sensor first item, actually, on the Lulu, is absolutely busted on Kog'Maw. You get so much attack speed, you get so much shielding, you know, you get that redemption bonus later on as well. It's just absurd. So I think that might actually come into play. Mostly because, like, yeah, Thunderlords on a support right now is very laning focused. Whereas if you go with the Wind Speakers, it's very team fight / late game focused. And so I think Mimikyu's gonna have to do a lot of work in this bottom lane, and I'm not sure it's gonna be able to happen.
We'll really have to see. Of course, it does come down to the execution, but I think that definitely speaks to what Spirit 8 is planning on in the early game. They definitely know that this top lane matchup is going to be hard. We can see the cloth armor start for the Nautilus in preparation for this tougher laning phase. So taking that Thunderlords on the Lulu, yes, it doesn't have the actual scaling that you'd expect with a Lulu Kog'Maw, but it can really assert its dominance in the lane. They know that they win these trades in the 2v2, and they probably feel pretty confident that any ganks that they have... Oh, we're actually going to have a little bit of trading. Level 1. Darius just running past the minions. Oh my goodness.
That 5th stack, just forces them out, and this is kind of where, you know, that cloth armor start might not be the best. I mean, all those bleed stacks, they do magic damage, actually. They don't do attack damage.
Do they still? I know they did before, but I could have sworn with the changes.
Unless I missed that change, I'm like 60% sure they do magic. We could get, you know, production to check on that in just a second. But, you know, get back to the point. Once you get that 5th stack, it gives you all that bonus AD as well. So that cloth armor is not exactly...
Oh, no, it's physical damage now.
Oh, is it? Alright, so my mistake. So, I mean, yeah, I guess the cloth armor helps more than I thought. But already having to use 2 of the 4 potions versus the 1, you know, corrupting potion of the Darius, he's going to run out of money if he keeps doing this.
But important to note, with Darius going for that early trading, of course the minions do focus him as well. He has the full early push in that lane, but we have a level 2 gank.
He's going to get stunned up. Flashes in. Mistlin forced the flash away as well. First blood coming in from Astrus. Has that double buff. He's chasing down on the magic. Gets the flash in. Barrier popped. Flash countered out as well. That's both mid laners using both summoners, with first blood going over to Astrus.
And we can see that they managed to get caught in the counter gank. It was a good idea, but the execution was flawed. Even though Cho'Gath does get the jump onto the Syndra first, he does wind up getting taken down because he just overestimated the damage you get from those Vorpal spikes. And now we're about to get our first taste of the trades in the bot lane.
Maggie Chu doing tons of work keeping Diathex alive, gets the flash and the exhaust. Astrus is doing everything he can. TSM loose cannon flashes forward, getting one more. Auto finally gonna come through, picks up that kill for himself. Diathex is left swirling his bullets in this last 4th shot with nothing to do but look and stare.
And that was the problem with the current positioning in the lane. Orianna was forced to back off. Oh, we have a return gank.
Gonna have to get slowed up by both pieces of slows. Does flash out though, stays alive for now, but that's repeat city in the bottom lane.
And this is just some very good pathing by Astrus early on in the game. He gets the counter gank in the mid lane, manages to burn all the summoners on the jungler and the mid lane, and then immediately comes to rotate bot. He sees that the Jhin and the Soraka are itching to shove it in early so they can get their first back off, and with no ward in the tri-brush, they were caught completely unaware. They wound up burning all 4 of their summoners as well, and Kog'Maw still got a kill in return. That's now 2 lanes snowballing, and now with this Nautilus definitely having a rough early laning phase, it doesn't quite look so bad for Spirit 8.
Yeah, I mean, the Nautilus is going to hit 6 eventually, and realistically, there's not a whole lot more you need. Like, yeah, him being, ahead and being just unkillable would be nice, but you can survive with, an Arbot there, especially when you then have Astrus already 1-0-1, having that Tiamat and farming up in the jungle still. Missile, miss it? I'm not sure these names, man.
Mistleton? I do like the Tiamat rush, though. That's something I really would like to talk about for a moment, because, actually, we have a gank in the mid lane first. No flash for the Syndra as well.
Making himself known once again. Silence comes in. No level 6, which means no shockwave. The slow's gonna miss.
Rupture's not gonna land.
Rupture, bit questionable there, but if Tim doesn't get this kill, it's
Oriana's out of mana.
Extra questionable. Silences and auto attacks coming in. Blast cone. Oh, that last auto is not.
Oh, he's got the flash. He's
gonna walk right into disabled. Disabled walks up. Flash. Q gets the kill. Says thank you for the gold. I'm heading back to my lane.
The Mistleton tried to go for the mangle there and didn't really fully aim it in time, and he did wind up going down because he didn't actually go over the wall. They did manage to burn the flash onto the Darius, but you can definitely tell that Nautilus does not appreciate giving a kill over to his lane opponent right now. He's actually gone for the Raptor Cloak first item as well. It might be a Zerat Portal Rush. I mean, I can't really think of an item you'd want to build on Nautilus with that Raptor Cloak.
Well, I mean, Raptor Cloak builds into ZZ Portal and one other item.
The support item. Actually, I believe there's one other, but I don't think any of them are as good as the Zerat on him. I mean, it does give resistances. He may be building that Zerat first item just so he can farm under tower.
Ooh,
oh,
level 7's here. Flash comes in. That feels good if you're disabled. That sentence hurts. That was...
Yeah.
That was not a friendly sentence right there.
You guys had to have the worst team name possible, and then you even had to have somebody named this. We either have to say disabled or disabled, because that's technically an I.
Is it? It looks like an L.
It's technically an I.
It looks like a hard L.
Because believe it or not, disabled was already taken.
Disabled, though, misses the apprehend, though, so he's not going to get the kill this time. Deadly Flourish comes in on the Mimikyu, but it's Lulu. Can just walk away.
I never even got to talk about the Tiamat rush. Anyway,
Tiamat rush is fantastic. I will agree with you.
Yeah. Trundle's a slow farmer. Obviously, you'd like to get boots early on, keep that gank train going, but at the same time, you buy a Tiamat on Trundle, all of a sudden your farm is easily much better than Cho'Gath's, even with those up purple spikes.
That's questionable. Between Rupture, Feral Scream, and New Vorpal, that is a fast clear.
Except Tiamat doesn't have a mana cost.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
Yeah, but if you can use like a Vorpal Feral and you can clear a whole thing, Unleash Power coming in. Shockwave's actually gonna miss! Oh, that is Magic getting outplayed by an R button.
I mean, that actually was an outplay. I'm usually hesitant to say that about Syndra, but she actually outplayed her there. She managed to walk forward and kind of juked out by... It's really a juke by aggression, and I love doing those. A lot of the time, people expect you to back off. They don't expect you to keep the trade going. It's the Gold 4 brand classic against Faker. You just keep moving forward. They really don't expect you to, and wound up juking the Shockwave with some unpent aggression.
So Diathex and Megachu kind of scared. They don't have a lot of vision down in this bottom side of the map. They don't know where the Trundle is. He's in the
Look at the Trundle. He's on the Blast Cone.
He's thinking about it.
He's waiting.
He's waiting for a bigger commit. He does come over.
He walked on the Lotus Trap, though.
Lotus Trap slowed up. TSM Loose Cannon down to half HP. There's a fantastic killer. They're trying to get the slowdown exhaust in. Diathex going super low, but... bit of miscommunication. TSM Loose Cannon wanted the Soraka. Everybody else wanted the Jhin. And unfortunately, that means they both survive.
Look at where the Cho'Gath is, though. If they can get any sense of where the Cho'Gath is right now... No, they're actually going to be going for the Dragon instead of the dive.
Yeah, Megachu has to back. So low on HP. Diathex can hang out and pick up this next minion wave if he so chooses. But this is an Infernal Drake going over to Spirit 8.
Yeah, and Syndra and Kog'Maw are definitely going to appreciate that, and even the Trundle, because keep in mind, every time he chomps down on an enemy, he does get that bonus AD, and that's also enhanced by the Infernal Drake. I don't expect him to build a lot of AD this game. He definitely wants to be a little beefy for his backline, but every little bit helps especially for this secondary damage like the Trundle.
I mean, yeah, he's probably gonna be going.
We're going for a counter
Cinderhulk
objective.
Cinderhulk into Titanic is probably
Most likely
his build path.
He might just keep the Tiamat for longer. We've seen many junglers just stick with the Tiamat and even sell it in the late game, but I mean, with how strong Titanic Hydra is as an auto reset, I assume Trundle will want to get that for himself. We can see the Rift Herald also going down for the Cho'Gath. He was going to back away initially, but it looks like he might want to force something top. Oh, and he gets the grab.
Comes in, Cyber to God, gonna get hit by Rupture. Actually, Silence coming in. Carol screams OP. Disable's doing everything he can. Here comes the dunk. It is good enough. That's one kill going over. Rift Herald not getting popped just yet.
Little bit of miscommunication in the top lane. No, they're actually going for the Rift Herald. What?
They Rift Herald and walk away.
Can't do that when there's a creep wave there. He's just going to kill it.
Yeah, this is not good. Asterisk doesn't have any mana.
Terrible timing. Oh, they're going to force it with a TP though.
Yeah, with no mana on Asterisk, it's really hard for him to do it. The charge actually went through, and then there were minions there. But this should be first tower of the game going over. There it is.
A little bit more force than needed. They did wind up having to burn the teleport just to secure that first brick. So a little bit of a misplay, but you could see that there was miscommunication earlier on. Nautilus was getting dove, didn't call over his jungler for help, and wound up going down while Trundle was just doing his
Here comes Asterisk getting hooked up. He's still so low on mana. Trying to do
He's really just going for the 1v2 right now, and it's working.
Yeah, Cyber God's not in any position really to even 1v2 this Darius. He's just gonna, I mean, look at that. That Decimate is just huge. He's able to just put in so much damage. The bleed, unfortunately, causing tower aggro to never give up.
Right, but all he has to do right now, since he knows he has no teleport, he's now going to have to exert more pressure in the top lane. Make sure they don't get collapsed on in the bottom lane. So he's just pushing forward. He knows exactly where the Trundle is as well. He forced him to back away. They should now know that this Trundle's moving towards the bottom side of the map. Ooh, that was a big grenade too. Nice little quarter chunk of HP on the Kog'Maw.
I do want to point out that Mimikyu, so far this game has been pretty clutch on shielding those Jhin 4th shots. It seems like every time we pan down to watch, the 4th shot comes in and does get blocked by the shield, which is so helpful, because that's like 80% of why you pick a shielding support is to prevent damage. And a lot of times, especially in solo queue, you'll get hit by a 4th shot and then get a shield. Be like, oh, I tried. Sorry.
Well, these are some moderately highly placed teams in the Elder League. We do expect a good level of communication and teamwork at this point. We can see even with those clutch shields, though, Kog'Maw is going to have to do a decent amount of healing on his own because the Dirk is already putting in work for this Jhin. The lethality changes for, as everyone I'm sure is aware, for anyone who's actually played in the last week, Lethality's back, Duskblade's busted, and you don't even need a Black Cleaver anymore. And I heard a flash go off?
Cho'Gath.
He flashed on what, though? Did he flash in place? Well, it looks like he's going to get caught out now.
Down to half HP.
They're going on the Syndra, though.
Not going to connect. Unleash Power going in. Doesn't get the kill, however. Disabled misses the Decimate. Blast Cone is there. Militant doesn't mess this one up.
Asterisk is coming up now.
Oh, the flash! Decimate into the dunk! Gets the kill.
There was just a lot of miscommunication there. They're not sure what they want to do. Is Darius trying to set up for a secondary dive? They have vision on the Trundle now, and it looks like Nautilus wants to try and force it.
Pretty good rupture there. Asher's going to get knocked up. Magic now stuck on the wrong side of a pillar. But they just want to clear up some vision. Make sure things go away.
Some more miscommunication between the jungler and his solo lanes. Mistalin went back in after he got to safety, winds up going down, not really respecting the flash from the Darius, but in the first place, they really shouldn't have been fighting in that spot. They thought they caught out the Cho'Gath. They don't manage to piss him off, so they need to disengage. They're still in a 2v3. They have their jungler nowhere nearby, and by the time he manages to get there, the fight should already be over.
So
a little bit of aggression on the side of Spirit 8 means they're now in a little bit of a deficit themselves.
Yeah,
another bouncing grenade.
2.5k gold. Ow, that doesn't feel good. And I'm actually kind of surprised.
Gank in the bottom lane.
Might have to wait about that. Slow getting caught up by Magachu. Forced the flash already. And that
was
disables
nice.
that whole gank idea.
They do manage to get the flash for it. I do like the preemptive flash. He knows the pillar is coming as soon as he emerges from the silence field. We do see that's a Zerat portal first item for the Nautilus. It's really kind of questionable, especially the placement of it. That's a clear spot for Darius to hit it. Really, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to accomplish here.
I would like to see an item with a bit more combat stats. Maybe a Bramble back.
Or like a Frozen Heart or something. Really, that Zerat portal, you're not going to get much value out of the active. Yes, you might be able to get maybe 10 more farm than you would have otherwise with the passive farming.
Not gonna connect. Gold-plat is on though. That
Deadly
is a
Flourish
good
lands.
Deadly Flourish to keep Mimikyu in spot. Silence comes in. Heal trying to keep him alive. Here comes the curtain call though. There goes the Wild Growth. TSM loose cannon. Silence not knocked up though. Fourth shot coming through, gets blocked up a little bit, and they end up surviving with only costing 2 summoner spells.
Right, and they're just kind of playing aggressive to begin with. They have no vision of where the jungler is. Their jungler's in the top side. Both these bottom lanes are getting way too aggressive, trying to shove in lanes without the vision to back it up, and they wind up getting punished for it repeatedly. Now we can see Drake evening out for both sides, one being a Cloud Drake though. Not exactly what you want, especially for this Darius. He definitely would have appreciated a Fire Drake, and as I take a peek over, it looks like the next Drake is going to be a Cloud Drake as well. Oh, okay.
Gets annihilated. Double dunk coming in. Astralis is down below half HP. Gets hit by the Rupture as well. Is healing up off of his ultimate, however. They're pushing in onto the tower. Tim tanking a couple tower shots. He's already at like 3,100 HP though, so he's not too mad about it.
Where the Syndra actually died, I'm a little surprised. I'm wondering what exactly happened there. We only got to see the latter half of that fight, and she does wind up going down. Some more pressure coming in from the solo lanes from TBW. They managed to open up the entire top half of the map. Zerat portal's been laid down on the top side again. I really don't think this is going to change Darius's mind though.
No, Darius doesn't actually care. He just one-shots it. By the time it's getting to that minion wave right there, you saw
Oh, another gank in the bottom lane. No
Killer
flash on the
coming
Soraka
in.
yet.
Magachu slowed up once again. Speed up comes in an instant exhaust. Deadly Flourish gonna keep the Trundle away. Fourth shot lands onto the Kog'Maw. Rupture forces the flash. TSM loose cannon survives by the chin of his chin. And disabled back in that top side. He's just like, thanks for the tower.
Here comes the Syndra though. She's got the ultimate available.
Mistalin gets the stun. Tower is actually hitting on disabled. The death charge coming in. That's a lot of damage. Shutdown coming in for Mistalin. The push onto the bottom tower though. Tim's trapped back under tower, but it's Dythex who's taking the tower shots. Rupture gonna connect on the two. Feral Scream keeps the silence alive. Tim has purple for breakfast. And directed camera, please. Fourth shot, not gonna connect. With Magic,
they do manage to continue that pressure though, and they got 4 on the bot lane. They do manage to get something out of this, and they're going to be able to get 3 towers before Spirit 8 can get a single one. Just overall, a good alignment of pressure. Yes, the Darius does wind up going down, but he's just drawing so much pressure on his own. They managed to make a play in the bottom lane from what looked like a bad situation to begin with.
And I have to question the item builds on the entirety of Spirit 8. We have the ZZ Portal top lane into Brambleback, which realistically the Brambleback should have been first, into the early Executioner's calling in TSM Loose Cannon. And I say, you know, I question it because even though he's heading into this Soraka lane, it's basically over. Having that first tower goes down means you don't realistically have to deal with the Soraka as much anymore. Yes, you know, it can still ultimate and stuff like that, but right now, look at his items. He has Blade of the Ruined King, Executioners, Doran's, Cull, and a dagger.
And it's important to note also that the only way that he can proc those grievous wounds is with his auto attacks. everything in Kog'Maw's kit is magic damage, and Grievous Wounds only works on physical damage for the Executioner's Calling. Which means he's going to have to... Oh, whoa, where did he come from?
Deadly Flourish comes in. Rupture's not even needed. Void Doggy is a
Fourth
specialty in the Void, but that is a double kill going over to the blue side.
Three-man
stun coming in. Magnitude gets annihilated. The wish was not enough. It is not granted. Michelin getting tagged up.
Oh my goodness.
Taking so much damage. Flashes out of the curtain call and has his buddy jungler there to protect against 3 of the bullets. Fourth shot doesn't connect, but that top lane turret says, you're on your own, Cyber God. Have fun with the basketball man. But the flash means he stays alive. All in all, it is a 2-4-1 with the tower on the top side going down.
Basketball man, like the muffin man, but
Tim, I mentioned it earlier, had 3,100 HP. It's probably like 3 minutes ago, I think. Currently sitting on 3,700. The stun's
very
not
nicely
gonna
placed
connect.
pillar. There's 4 bottom though. He's still pushing top. My goodness.
It's taking a lot of tower shots though.
You can actually heal through it though. I mean, he'll be able to sustain quite nicely already. He's got a Thornmail second item. Holy cow.
Yeah, Thornmail's kind of OP, but it's rough going for Cyber God, and I'm not sure if Michelin's gonna survive this. Decimate comes in. Oh god. That shockwave. That just kind of sealed it. Astrus though, Righteous gloried up.
And we can see the full effect of a Cho'Gath when he starts to get rolling. You saw those tower shots hit him. They just didn't seem to do anything. We've already got 2 Bramble Vests on the side of TBW as well. The Thornmail already completed as well. They're really trying to hard counter this Kog'Maw. They realize that a lot of the eggs are in the Kog'Maw basket, and they're trying to crush this basket. We can see now 2-man incoming on the Darius.
Gets the 5 stack. He's put it on a both of them. He gets a dunk. This could drastically change. Tries to get the
oh my
heal.
god.
Does get the 1 in there. Can he get away though? Astrus has mana.
Oh,
He's
there's
on
a
the
flash on
chase. Disabled.
Unlucky.
He's dead. Flash comes in, gets the bite, gets the slow, gets the kill. But all in all, in a 1v2, you take your jungler's flash. Yes, you burn yours, but you win the 1v2.
Look at the pressure once more. They know there's at least 3 members in the top side. They see 2 in the mid lane. They're going to be able to take this dragon without contest again. Yes, it's another Cloud Drake, but they managed to keep establishing control over objectives, and it looks like they're going to posture for the Syndra now.
Dithex gets the reload in, has his Duskblade completed. He's going for that full lethality build. Which,
and I don't blame him. Look at the builds.
Yeah, I was about to say, like I mentioned earlier, that this probably wouldn't be the correct build, but just the fact that, you know, his team's so far
TP
ahead.
Coming in from Darius.
Gets a little behind the team, does have the home guards, gets the apprehend, slows not enough. That is so much damage! The wild growth doesn't keep Mistlin alive. The Rupture's not going to connect.
Insanely aggressive teleport.
But
and
that pillar, you're not trapped in here with him. He's trapped in here with you, Astrus. Now taking tons of damage, does dodge out on the Deadly Flourish, but he gets silenced. He gets hit by the basketball pole. He gets dunked on. Gonna go down in the end. Magic down to half HP. Cyber God's trying to do whatever he can to keep his team in it. But Mimikyu, you're not where you want to be, friend. Does manage to get out thanks to the polymorph. Apprehend misses by a hair. But this is going to be another tower going over to the TBW squad.
And
that apprehend connects!
Okay, we're not done yet.
Dithex picks up the kill. Cyber God makes 2. I thought he had more kills, so I set that up to be a bit more impressive than it was. But
how many tower shots did Tim manage to tank throughout that fight? He's got 4,500 HP already.
Yeah, you saw the Redemption didn't even really do that much to heal him.
Right, it topped off everyone else on his team. It barely affects the Cho'Gath. This Cho'Gath is quite literally huge, and we can see that they've already in a position to just completely dive. One of the most aggressive TPs we've seen so far coming in from Disabled on the Darius. He just runs forward. He channels the full teleport in front of multiple members, runs forward. They know there's no flash on the Syndra, and they manage to kill her while the rest of the team is just forced to watch. They're in such a commanding lead right now. They've managed to establish a 9,000 gold lead 25 minutes in, and they're going to keep going. They're going to scale up quite nicely. Even the Jhin is managing to put in a lot of work despite the heavy front line that was supposed to be coming in from Spirit 8.
Yeah, and we've talked build paths. We see a Runedanc's Hurricane just now being completed
Blame
by
Horizon
the
for top
Kog'Maw.
lane, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of to be expected. Runedanc's Hurricane just being completed by that Kog'Maw. This is the build that I mentioned that is pretty much what you are used to seeing. But I don't know if it's enough. Stun coming in doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Disabled thinks he's in a 1v1, but there's the rest of the team. Polymorph, Pillar.
The rest of the team's
Dreadblind
coming, though. He just needs to buy
does
time.
get a 2-man apprehend, and he's still alive! Huge stun coming in, but he's living! Does finally go down to Mistlin. Shockwave only going to connect onto Cyber to God. Astron trying to chase down onto the carries of TBW, but he's not doing so healthy. They finally are going to take him down. Tim survives by the skin of his teeth, but now Dyfix is in the middle of 3. Doesn't seem to care. Does eat a Dark Orb for half his HP. Does turn it around. 4th shot into the big Seaman's face, but does go down. Mistlin dodges out on that deadly flourish. Dyfix doesn't have his Ghostblade ready, and he's just gonna back off.
Right, they're just going to shove in this lane now. We can see that all 3 lanes on the side of TBW are currently pushing. That's going to be a lot of minions that need to get picked up. Even with such a disjointed fight, with Darius actually having to tank a 1v4 for a good 15 seconds, they wind up coming out on top in a 3-for-2. And you can't expect a better fight than that coming from Spirit 8. They managed to, what they assume, get a catch. And even then, it took so long.
Tim built a Warmogs.
Definite Shmee thinking, I would say. That's actually 5,300 HP now coming in from Tim.
No. There's no flash. That's unfortunate.
Unfortunate, yeah.
He didn't need that dunk. He styled on him.
That was just a message. Righteous Glory popped for Cho'Gath, but the Pillar is going to stop him in its tracks.
If I'm Maggie Chu, I'm just like, Tim, I'm not healing you. You have a Warmogs. I have more important people on my list.
The funny thing is, you can see the item build from the Cho'Gath. He's only got 47 magic resist. I believe that's the lowest on his team. 69, 94, 55. Yes, he literally has the lowest magic resist on his team as the main frontline tank.
There's no blast cone, which means there's no way for Asterisk to get in the pit. Outside of that, he had
Flashes anyway.
Unfortunately, he's now dead. He's doing everything he can to stay alive, but just kind of ends. Here comes the curtain call. Mimikyu forced to wild growth up for his team. Disabled. Gonna eat the unleashed power for breakfast. He's just like, thank you. 3-man apprehend into the 2-man shockwave. Deadly flourish is gonna catch on to the Syndra. That is a double kill for disabled. Gets the dunk. Gets the disabled. No, wrong. Gets the what's his Q?
Well, I mean, technically,
Decimate.
if they're dead, they're also CC'd, and another term for CC'd is disabled. So you're not wrong.
Death is the hardest CC.
Right.
And so with the Baron, with 4 members dead, this is 100% going to be that top lane inhibitor. We'll see if they're feeling cheeky tonight. There's a bit of a miscommunication. They want to go for it. They don't want to go for it. TSM Loose Cannon has his flash. Is it enough, though? Rupture's not going to connect. Tim's just ignoring towers at this point. Has that Warmog, so he will be able to heal up nicely. They are just,
you know what else will help him heal? Ocean Drake. Guess what the Drake is?
It is 30 minutes of the game. By all analytics, Ocean Drake should be relatively unnecessary.
But it's more regen.
I want to see what Tim's actual health regen is.
Let's see what he's got right now. Where'd he go? There he is. He's currently sitting on a nice 52-92. He must have had some pot or something. Oh, go! Another teleport coming in. They don't want that Syndra to get the blue buff.
That's 2 auto attacks onto Astrus. Astrus gets that 5th up, gets apprehended in, but Mistel's in the middle of 3. throws out the unleashed power, gets the wish, gets rooted though. That is the rupture for the kill. And Disabled still under the tower, just tanking it for days. Dithex, 4 shots, that poor little blue ward. What did it ever do to you, Dithex? Tim is running rampant in the background. This is going to be another tower going down in favor of TBW with a member down, with the mid laner down. This should be even more coming in. They're just putting damage into this tower, forcing everybody away. Deadly Force lands onto TSM, loose cannon. He gets annihilated, eaten for breakfast. Tim, though, he's just kind of chilling. That's going to be another tower going down into another inhibitor going down. Super minions in the top side. Baron's still ticking down. Is this the end of the game? Is this when they put the W on the board? Mimikyu just gets annihilated. What even is that? Gets dunked down. Astris is doing everything he can. Shockwave's going to connect onto Mistlin. There's too many D words in this game. Astra's forced to try and get away, but it's just not enough. 4th shot, the dancing grenade gets that kill. That is the Nexus going down. Eventually. There it is. Dithex picks it up. With that is game 1 going over to TBW. So that was a game.
Yeah, I gotta say that wasn't the result I was expecting. I mean, yes, TBW is technically a couple places ahead in the standings with a significantly better score, but that was really pure domination once they started to take off. They even had a worse early game. Asterisk managed to make several good plays early on, managed to get basically 2 out of 3 of his lanes ahead in the first 5 minutes of the game, but it turns out the one lane he didn't put enough focus on started to snowball. That he had so much pressure in the top lane, Flame Horizon by 20 minutes in the game, and by playing through the Darius and letting him get all the pressure put onto the top side of the map, the rest of TBW could really just exert their will on the rest of the enemy team. They managed to play team fights fairly well as well. I would have liked to see Shockwave held on to a little bit longer for more playmaking potential, but overall very clean game once they managed to find their footing after the early game.
So looking at these damage charts, that Darius pick did as much damage as the mid laner and the top laner of Spirit 8 combined. No, my math was way off. I thought he did.
So, well, that's like a $3,000. You know, it's kind of close.
It was close enough that it's uncomfortable. I mean, this kind of has to get banned away next game, right? I mean, even though they had, full 5 bans, which is crazy when you're looking at Elder League. I think this is like the first week we've ever had both teams with all 10 bans. But this Darius pick just did so much work, and I don't know if it was the Darius pick was so good or if the response in the Nautilus pick was just so poor. But I did mention in Champ Select that the drafting was perfect from TBW there, because they picked the Cho'Gath, baited the top lane pick, and then are like, surprise, Darius.
Nobody likes surprise Darius.
Does it get banned away next game?
If they plan on picking another tank in the top lane, I fully expect it to, but then the Fiora comes out instead. Really need to have something lined up and prepared for this actual tank meta, because yes, you can pick tanks, but you need to make sure you're playing it into another tank as well. There aren't really many tanks that can deal with something like a Darius or a Fiora, or even something more minor like a Jace. These are all champions that can bully the hell out of the tanks, and really, there's no counterplay to it in the 1v1. You either need to have jungle pressure, you need to play the champion select better, or really just not play tanks. I mean, your top laner is literally a Diana main. I'm sure she's got some other carry pocket picks available to her. Put her on a carry. Don't resign them to Nautilus duty when it's very apparent with that Zerat portal rush they are not comfortable on it.
And with that, guys, we are just going to have to wait and see. We will be right back while the teams set up for game number 2. Stay tuned. We'll have to see if we're going all the way tonight. That wasn't an English sentence. We're going to have to see if we're going all the way tonight. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
I hope we're going all the way.